Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's Tour Catch-Up, sponsored by DownloadTennis.com.
The United States seal the United Cup.
Djokovic delights the fans in Adelaide.
And Coco Gauff dominates in Auckland to capture her third singles tour title.
Kim, Chris, today is the 9th of January and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. It is a new season on the tour. 2023 is here. And of course, it's a new season for the Tennis Weekly podcast. And we are official. We are officially a three-person show. Joel, Kim and Chris are here. And we're ready to talk about some tennis. We've got the Australian Open as well to look forward to. So yeah, there's been a lot that's happened already, hasn't there, guys? I feel like we had the shortest of off seasons where I've just about had a breather, and now we are just like fully back into the thick of it.
Tennis never sleeps. It never ever stops, even in the off season. And
it doesn't even feel like it has a Christmas break.
No, well, everyone's off playing, exhibitions and whatnot, and it just, it's literally never ending. I mean, I can't believe it's 2023, and I hope everyone had a good New Year's, but it doesn't feel like a New Year because it doesn't seem to have stopped.
We had more of an off season than the players did, I think, because we've been off since start of December, and I mean they've been playing every week, some of them throughout the whole of the off season, picking up the checks from the exhibitions, but. Did you watch? I watched some of it, but not only the highlights.
How bothered are you by all these events that happen outside the tour season, all these sort of exhibition style events? I mean, personally, from my point of view, I'm just almost exhausted from how much tennis goes on in the regular tour season. I genuinely just need a break and need to kind of shut off before the new seasons begin. So, I might watch a YouTube highlight here or there, still kind of keep some updates going on Twitter, but I don't really get too involved in what goes on, I think, in December. What's your kind of approach when the off season happens?
I think exhibitions are better for people who are actually there in person, where it's a bit of a laugh, because they're not serious, they're not really a big indicator, I would say, of form or anything. So personally, I don't really tune in that much to exhibitions. I know some people were a bit ambivalent about the one that was out in Saudi Arabia, was it? But I don't know. What, Chris? Where's your sort of thought process on exhibitions? I know. Yeah. I can picture you staying up in the middle of the night just to watch them still, I have to say.
Well, straight in there, Kim. Straight in there.
Did I stay up to watch Kim Clijsters versus Leylah Fernandez in Orlando on the 4th of December to watch Kim Clijsters roll back the clock and win 7 games to 5 over the 20-year-old?
Absolutely. I will be disappointed if the answer is no.
I was basically there. I mean, I was tempted to book a flight, but I decided I'd just stream that one. But no, I watched some of it. I like to see, a bit of a shocking result, like when Sasha took out Djokovic in one of those matches. I like a surprising result, but I wouldn't necessarily catch all of it. I think we all need a little bit of a break to get our excitement levels back up, and now they are sky high ahead of this season.
But Joel, I remember during the Christmas period, you were talking to us about the World Tennis League, and you were having a bit of a nightmare you were actually watching a bit of it, weren't you? But you were having a bit of a nightmare.
If there was one event I was watching, or trying to watch, I think is probably a better statement. It was the World Tennis League in Dubai, because I don't know if our listeners were following this event at all, but it was certainly my highlight of the off season, because I thought had a great list of players. Yes, they were probably there for the paycheck, but had a great set of players, and it brought some really interesting doubles partnerships to the court, and this team aspect. The marketing was great. I thought it could be a nice little event, and then I started watching it, and on the court colour combination is probably the most shocking colour court combination I think I've seen on a tennis court. They combined, or they thought an orange court and yellow tennis balls would be a great idea, And if you try and watch it, try and watch some highlights, just try and tell me where the tennis ball is, because it was genuinely baffling how they had arrived at this decision to be like, right, we're going to put this event on. We want it to go as global as possible. So we're going to need people glued to the TV to watch it. Let's make the most difficult like combination of colours on a tennis court imaginable. For viewers to just struggle to find the ball.
Yeah, if they'd had a blue court with an orange background, fine. But really interesting decision by the tournament organisers there.
You love a court controversy, don't you, Joel? I feel like Naples, you've got the orange court here.
Well, it did remind me of Naples, but I think this was worse. I think this was worse than Naples, and I just
worse than Naples.
Yeah, I genuinely
if you can't see the ball,
on
that's pretty bad. Yeah. If you can't see the sport that you're playing,
it can't have been easy for the players, I feel, to play on a court like this. And if it does happen again next year, surely they're going to have to change the court colour, because I feel like I wasn't the only one talking about this, but it did, I think, provide a bit of light-hearted humour over the off season.
Well, quite a lot happened over the off season, didn't it? Because we've had various things. Boris Becker's out of prison. Emma Raducanu's got a new coach.
Kim, Boris Becker's out of prison and already into a commentary gig for the Australian Open.
Yeah, I don't particularly agree with that myself. I feel like they've just sort of ignored the fact that he committed a crime and was
did lie about
for it. Yeah, and I'm like, there are better pundits than
I'd agree
Boris
with that.
Becker anyway.
Do
we need him back so soon? Like, surely there are other options, but that's par for the course. Chris, what was your highlight from the off season? Did you have a particular moment you enjoyed?
Yeah, I remember I shared this on a WhatsApp as well. It was so between Christmas and New Year, there was this really lovely story about a meeting of the British Iranian citizen who was detained over in Iran, Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe. And what was really interesting about this story is that in 2016, she was in solitary confinement in Iran, and she was able to watch two channels on a TV that she was given, and one of them had sports on and Wimbledon was on. And so she talked about the fact that watching Andy Murray on his title run gave her so much hope. And it's one of those really kind of wonderful stories, and you think, you always talk about the impact that sports can have, but for someone in the situation that she found herself in, it obviously meant an awful lot to her. And what was nice about this is that they got to meet, but also that we got some of our classic Murray tears. He definitely had a bit of a voice wobble on Radio 4 for this one, but
was it shades of that Wimbledon ceremony when he lost to Roger Federer?
Yeah, and Sue Barker didn't hug him, but she shouldn't have. That would have been unprofessional. But what was really nice is that he said it was the most incredible story that he's ever been told about someone watching him play tennis, and that nothing's ever come close to it, and that she's made him feel so much more grateful for everything that he's got. So I thought that was super nice, and kind of two worlds colliding that you wouldn't have known about. But it shows you the power of the sport. So a little bit of an inspiring story and a bit of a kind of heartwarming story. From me, slightly deeper than the colour of the court, Joel. But what about you, Kim?
We cover all depths at the podcast here.
Yeah, we do.
Well, no, I mean, that's a very heartwarming story. I can't really top that. But I think my sort of highlight of the off season was our crowdfunder, actually, because
that's a good one.
We have held our third crowdfunder now, and I think we've smashed our target. We've had 19 lovely listeners and supporters contribute. We've raised a total of £920 over the course of the crowdfunder. So we're all just so chuffed here, aren't we, at the amount of support that's come in. So just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who contributed and supported, because this really helps us put on the show and continue to do what we love doing, which is bringing Tennis Weekly to all our listeners and beyond. So massive thank you.
Hear.
And actually, I mean, spoiler alert to our listeners, I've already delved into the crowdfund bank account, and I've bought some new sound effects for Par for the Courts in the second half.
Well, that makes it all worthwhile. That's
Yeah. I think we just lost the heartwarming there. I think I'm
There'll be
I'm
more
so
very
excited
scared
about
about
these sound
nominations
effects.
now.
I've genuinely,
Yes.
I spent so long about thinking what sound effects could we use? Do I just get better quality ones? So I'm really, as I said, I'm looking
something to look forward
kind
to
of showing
listeners
them
later
off
in the show.
in the second half. Yeah, I mean, yes, we're going to be talking about like the Australian Open and all the events this week, but definitely watch out for the sound effects that that are coming.
Money well spent.
That's just one of many things that the crowdfund is going towards. It's not purely for Joel's guilty pleasure of sound effects. But yeah, massive thank you to everyone who supported. We are chuffed to bits, and that
Absolutely.
was so nice to see over the off season. And here we are, ready for another season of Tennis Weekly 2023. Here we go. So I think to start off, we've got to kind of crack on with the tennis news from the last week. Very excitingly, we had the very first edition of the United Cup, which basically kind of the Hopman Cup, rebranded, rejigged. But we had the inaugural winners of the United Cup was very aptly named the United States, who beat Italy in the final 4-0 love. We had Taylor Fritz getting that final victory, the third rubber to clinch it for the United States over Matteo Berrettini in 2 tie breaks. And we had wins for Jessie Pegula, Madison Keys, and TFO through a withdrawal
Retirement
from
Musetti.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, so this is the first edition of this cup. What did you both make of it? I mean, what did you make of the United States? What did you make of the format generally? Joel, kick us off. What were your first impressions of it?
You know, it was really interesting. I think everyone was obviously really excited, for this event. Rafa was there, Swiatek was there. I think Swiatek actually was one of the success stories of the week, or specifically her partnership with Hubert Hurkacz in the mixed doubles. But as it went on, I feel like more and more confused about sort of what was going on. Had ties that were occurring over 2 days. The mixed doubles was the last tie, and often the case was it not being significant in the tie, which sort of confused me because we talked about this event as a sort of replacement to the Hopman Cup, where the mixed doubles was a real, I think, kind of centerpiece for that. Whereas for here, because it was that sort of 5th rubber, it just sort of felt it was put to kind of one side. So for me, that was a little bit of an issue. And then the other issue was I just felt again although we got some really good kind of matchups, particularly I think with the first men's player versus of the countries playing each other. But that second male player, we had some really budget matchups, I feel like. Maybe not even tour level matchups, maybe even kind of more challenger tour matchups. And I think there was too much of a quality difference, I think, between some of the matchups. And although we got some high, profile names there, we also got, I think, a lot of matches that just didn't feel maybe that high profile and that compelling maybe to a fan, going to the event.
Do you think it would work better if it was like the old Hopman Cup where you just had 2 for each country rather than trying to have a larger team?
I don't know. I think for me, certainly, I think they need to rethink that mixed doubles. I feel like it needs to be in the middle somehow, and making sure that it's like part of the live situation, and it's not because at some points it just wasn't played because it was it didn't mean anything, which was, I think, a shame, because as I said, I think that the best moments, as I said, like Hubert Hurkacz and Iga Swiatek on a tennis court, it really kind of brought noise and atmosphere and good vibes, I think, to the tournament. But it was just a shame I don't think we got enough of those.
I'd be inclined to agree. I think that's something that Nadal talked about the format as well, that it would also be better if matches weren't sort of not necessarily dead in the sense before players have sort of played. It was a similar thing with the Billie Jean King Cup where that can happen. I mean, he knew that when they played Australia, that neither of them were going to be going through from the group stages. And so it was obviously he wants practice, he's playing. But as you say, the mixed doubles is where people really suffer. Like Nadal and Badosa aren't going to turn up on a mixed double court if they're already eliminated from the competition.
Yeah, and it was a shame because I think Rafa said, like, if it was a live match, I would have played it. But because it wasn't, I'm not going to risk stepping out on the court for a match that is ultimately pointless.
I think that's a problem with all these team and mixed events. There's always tends to be that dead rubber issue, which is a shame for fans who are there live and tuning in from home wanting to see these sort of critical matches, but that's just the way it goes. But I mean, in terms of the winners that we had, what did you make of team, USA's performance? They did very well. I think they only lost 2 rubbers throughout the entire tournament, so very dominant kind of from the word go. They did lose a rubber to, I think, GB, didn't they? So what did you make of them as a team winning the title?
I mean, it was very impressive. It's a very big turnaround from their performance at team events at the end of last year where...
Davis Cup.
Well, and the Billie Jean King Cup, it was an absolute mess, wasn't it, for them in terms of selection, in terms of the whole performance, given how great the players are that play for that country. So I think there's something about them all playing together that almost gave it like a college tennis sort of atmosphere for them. They were definitely the team who was having almost the most fun. I guess it's a lot more fun when you're winning every match, at least 4-1 or 5-0. But from that team, standout performances have to be from Pegula with that 6-2, 6-2 win over Iga, where Iga was in tears at the end of that one. And there are pictures of her under the towel where Agnieszka Radwanska is kind of comforting her. But I mean, I think a lot of people have said with Pegula that maybe she doesn't have that sort of that magic game or that extra star quality or to play lights out tennis, but she really did. And it was such precision on her shots and such depth of shot making that I think when it comes to what we're looking at this season, I think you can't count her out from potentially getting a Grand Slam in this next year.
Well, I was going to ask that. Do you think that win against Swiatek announces her as a Grand Slam contender for the upcoming Australian Open?
Team events are very different, I would say. I think there's a level of being relaxed in those. Obviously, that you did get points and there was prize money for this, which is quite nice and it's extra incentive for players to be there. But it is very different when it comes to, playing in the later rounds of a Grand Slam semi-final versus playing a semi-final of the United Cup, as the third rubber being played. And you already are up 2-0 or whatever it would be. I'm not saying that was the score at the time, but I think it shows really positive signs, but it's very different when you're doing it as an individual sport.
And should we be worried about Iga Swiatek having, the fact that she was crying after that defeat? Is there anything sort of wider going on with her, like in the run-up to the AO? Are either of you concerned? Chris, are you concerned about Iga?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned, I think, because it is one where she isn't the Iga that we saw when she was kind of dominating in the middle of last season, and especially around when she was playing in the US on hard courts, because she had a few losses that were a little bit sort of surprising. She lost to Rybakina in the off season, and that was, I think that was 6-love, 6-4. That was really a very dominant display there. And then obviously she's lost to Pegula. So I think there are score lines that we wouldn't have expected to see. And I think the way that she's responded to it is a bit unusual, when it comes to, when it comes to a world number one. I think it's perfectly fine to express your emotion. But seeing her kind of being destroyed sort of twice in sort of 2 weeks. It was 6-3, 6-1 in that match against Rybakina. But seeing her only win 4 games, that's not the Iga that we saw most of last season.
It'd be hard to keep that form up that we did see most of last season. So perhaps this is a natural kind of, tail off from that.
Yeah, I think she's shown, I think, that she, I guess, is human. And, there's also, I think, a big expectation on her. I mean, you think about the number of points that she's, got to defend this season. I think we're still obviously very early on in the season and it's hard to read kind of too much into it. But, if we're talking about, Pegula and Swiatek being up there as some of the favourites for the Australian Open crown in a couple of weeks, then I certainly think this gives Pegula confidence that will help her potentially if we get to a potential showdown in a few weeks' time in Melbourne.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, just looking at other players who had a great week, Stefanos Tsitsipas, he was unbeaten. In all his singles matches. We had, good performances by Greece generally, Poland getting to the semi-finals, and obviously the Italian players in the final. One player perhaps a bit of concern over is Rafa. You know, he lost both of his
Kim.
singles.
How are you feeling about that, Kim?
Well, I know everyone was like WhatsApping me going, oh, he hasn't won a match. You know, does this mean he's definitely not defending his Australian Open title? Quite possibly, yes, it does mean that. I mean, he lost to Cam Norrie and Alex de Minaur from a set-up each time. So quite frustrating, and especially that Alex de Minaur match, 7-5 in the third. But I think this is all part of Rafa just getting up to speed and playing his way into things. So I'm not sort of, you know, immediately super concerned, but I would like to see him obviously getting the wins. And I feel maybe he should have played one of the other events, maybe, you know, instead of the cup. But I think it's nice. I think, you know, he wanted to play the team event and be there and represent his country.
Yeah, it was a hard start for him from the season. I mean, to be honest, it was a tough end to the season in 2022, and it's sort of picking up a little bit where he left off, unfortunately. And there's going to be, I think, I have no doubt, you know, coming into a Grand Slam, you know, the champion that he is, defending champion that he is, that he's going to pick up his tennis. Best of 5 is a completely different environment. But I do agree, and I do wonder if playing a 250 maybe would have made more sense, where he's not going in cold to playing, you know, players like Cam Norrie and Alex de Minaur, you know, top 10 there or thereabouts players. I mean, I think Cam Norrie for me was one of the standout singles players on the men's side from the week, along with Taylor Fritz as well. So you know, I don't think there's too much, you know, to be disheartened about if you kind of look at his form. But yeah, I do wonder if, you know, the allure of it obviously was it's a new event. You know, he's probably been there, done that with everything versus kind of playing a 250. But yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, I feel, if you're a Rafa fan.
Yeah, but yeah, great on the Cam Norrie front. Definitely positive going into the AO, where we'd love to see him go deep again at a slam. I mean, talking of potential candidates for the win at the Australian Open, we obviously have to talk about a certain Novak Djokovic, who is very much back in Australia without any controversy, without what happened last year, which we don't really want to talk about. We spent enough time talking about that at the time. It was the scenes were, you know, just looking back, just crazy in hindsight, really, what went down. So he's very much in Australia. He's very much back to winning ways.
He's in Australia. We can confirm.
He has arrived.
He has arrived. He has won. He has won the Adelaide International, which is the 250 event. And he won that, a bit of a tough final there with Seb Korda. You know, 2 tie-break sets.
Down.
Yeah, match point down. Going to a third, which Djokovic clinched 6-4. You know, he fought his way through the week. You know, had sort of a different quality of opponents, I suppose, as the week went on, we should say. But got wins over Korda, over Medvedev, Shapovalov. Joel, what did you make of Djokovic's week in Adelaide?
Yeah, I mean, I was just more interested to see how the fans were going to react to him, and again, looking on the Adelaide kind of socials, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. It just seems like he was like some sort of disciple. I feel like just walking around the event, everyone was loving it, and they were like, "Oh my God, Novak Djokovic is here! We love you, Novak Djokovic!" And you know, he had a fantastic week. I think, yes. You know, I think he started off well, straight sets victories, had a good win over Shapovalov. I thought he was going to be tested a little bit more from Medvedev in the semi-finals. You know, they had a fantastic match, you know, last year in Kazakhstan, which unfortunately ended in like a retirement by Medvedev. And I wondered if it was going to be at that level. So I was maybe a little bit kind of surprised he wasn't tested further there. But, you know, I think to get that test from Korda in the final, who was playing a very high level, which as a Murray fan gives me confidence in that defeat from the first round. But the fact that I think he got that test in the final, I just think worryingly for most other fans, I think puts him in a really good place going into you know, an event that he knows so well, has performed so well at in the past. And you know, for me, I'm not almost like that interested in his performances at the moment. Again, I'm just interested in what the reaction is going to be, because the reaction in Adelaide I felt was just like overwhelmingly positive. We love you. Is it going to be the same in Melbourne? I don't know. I'm not sure at the moment.
Chris, were you surprised that Djokovic even played this event? Because I think historically he hasn't played the pre-AO kind of smaller events. But do you think this was all part of maybe rebuilding that brand image in Australia to get himself out there, just to test?
You want to take the sting
like?
out of you want to take the sting out of it before you get to Melbourne, because those crowds could definitely be a little bit more on the I'd say the difficult side at times. But
like that crazy drunk lady in that Rafa match.
Oh,
there are characters down under, but I was thinking more when they were grunting with Sabalenka that year. Every time she hit the ball, they've done it with Sharapova, I think, as well. They're not afraid to make some noise, but I think with the reaction, I think people want to move past it. I don't think it, as we said, made Australia look particularly good on the international stage. I don't think it was good for anyone in that situation. So I think, to be honest, as we said, like a bit like what Kim said, I think we're just all done talking about it, and let's talk about the tennis. Unless you're Joel, who's here for the gossip of it. You know, he's like, how would he be received the next time he plays?
I'm not trying to like
I like
stir
the tennis,
things
if
that
I'm
aren't
honest,
there.
you know?
Yeah, it is funny because it's like, you know, it's a new season, you know, new leaf, but you know, at the same time, you know, this week we're already kind of seeing that the likelihood is Djokovic won't be able to play in the United States again. You know, we've got the Sunshine Double coming up. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to make it into America for that. So there's still, you know, that like sort of hangover there. It's not just like we can forget of what's happened in the past. It's still kind of lingering about. But yeah, maybe in Australia it does feel like they're welcoming him back with open arms.
And he is still only there because of the change in government and the new immigration minister, you know, kind of revoking that ban. So it's still, you know, he still had to rely on certain factors to be able to play in Australia this season. Just before we move on to the women's event, Seb Korda, you know, really great performance, almost got the title. He struggled a lot with injury last year. You know, we haven't seen him back to kind of this form, I would say, in a while. So high hopes for the AO for Mr. Korda there.
I think high hopes in generally for United States. I mean, given how well they did in the United Cup with, I think Taylor Fritz is going to have I feel like Taylor Fritz could be a dark horse for the Australian Open to go far. Yeah, I think Tiafoe as well. I think Korda. I think they've got a really good group of male players there that could go deep, I think, in the Australian Open. I think Korda, I think he will be seeded, but I definitely think he's going to be a player not many people are going to want to face. And, you know, watching the match against Djokovic, his double-handed backhand, when they were trading cross-court, I think for me, it's one of the few players where I look at his double-handed backhand, I think it's just very, very solid.
It's something else, isn't it?
Yeah, with the very best in the business, you know, from the back of the court. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a danger to watch out for.
His weight of shot really surprised me in terms of just how much Djokovic had the time taken away from him. I've never seen Djokovic sort of almost like bunt the ball back, not even having time to swing and just kind of using some of the pace on that. And I think it's some of the best defending I've ever seen Djokovic do. I think he might be, you know, in his sort of 36th year, but he's certainly moving and playing a much more defensive and a very impressive defensive game than some of the younger players on the tour. So he's not making it easier for himself by kind of taking on the ball and kind of playing more aggressively. I think this one was like a masterclass in defensive play and perseverance. One thing I was going to say on this one was he did lose his cool a bit, which was a bit surprising. And didn't he send his brother out of the box and one of his agents? So I think it's interesting.
They're watching too much Daniel Medvedev.
Well, maybe. I mean, this is a new trend, right? Of get them out your box. I mean, Stefanos has kicked his dad out a few times, but no, I just think it was interesting to see how he problem solved and found a way. But it was a bit scary again.
Just on that, I did enjoy in the United Cup. I was watching a bit of Germany, and Misha Zverev is captain. And, you know, he was obviously coaching and giving advice to Sasha Zverev. And I'm like, what can Misha Zverev tell his brother, his better tennis playing brother, Sasha Zverev, about playing tennis on the tennis court?
Well, Petros Tsitsipas was the Greek captain. So I think that makes Misha Zverev looked particularly qualified.
Is there a bit of nepotism going on there? Yeah.
And a Nepo baby on the tennis tour.
I mean, going back to Adelaide, I'm really quite a big fan of the Adelaide event because we have women and men, combined in the same week. So we had the women's event, which was actually a 500, not a 250. And Sabalenka back to winning ways, her first title since May of 2021. We all know about her struggles on serve in 2022, but she's back.
Write a novel on it.
I know. Yeah, the whole saga there. But she was up against Linda Noskova in the final. So one of the young Lindas, which is her first tour final. A huge breakthrough week for her. But Sabalenka coming out on top straight sets to get that title over Noskova, the qualifier. Chris, are you excited that Sabalenka is back to winning ways? Are you pleased that she's kind of getting back to form? Hopefully that the double faults from last season might be a thing of the past. I mean, what did you make of her overall performance this week?
Well, I think it's great that she's continued the run of form that she had at the end of last season. She did do some real damage in Fort Worth, where she was able to, take out Iga, and then obviously she succumbed to Caroline Garcia in the final. She had that semi-final at the US Open. So I think we're at this sort of same point with Sabalenka, where she does tend to pick up a title at the start of a season, and people all sort of make those predictions about an Australian Open result. And for me, I think it's great to see her do this. Didn't drop a set. The numbers were good. She had 12 aces, 7 double faults, 92% of first serve points won. So that is real progress. But I guess I've still got that question mark of, we've all predicted that she maybe was going to get a slam for the last maybe 3-4 seasons. So for me, I was more impressed with Noskova in this and having that sort of breakout performance, because I kind of expect Sabalenka, a player of her quality, to be able to do this on a more regular basis.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised that she hadn't won a title in like almost 2 years, really. So that was quite interesting, for someone of her caliber. But yeah, her 11th career singles title. And well, obviously, hopefully we'll see her go deep at the AO, as you said, off the back of that US Open going deep last year. But talking about Noskova as the finalist, she's still so young. She's only 18. She's become the youngest finalist of this level event and the WTA since Caroline Wozniacki back in 2008.
Wow.
So long time. Massive week for her. She's into the top 60 in the world rankings now. She got her first wins over top 10 players with that win over Jabeur in the semi-final. So yeah, really fantastic stuff. Also win over Kasatkina. I mean, I was lumping her with Linda Fruvertova. It's the two Lindas, that they're really. But I think Noskova's kind of edged in front with this final performance. Joel, I know you're a big fan of the Lindas. Were you particularly pleased for her?
I mean, she came through qualifying, saved, I think she was match point down actually in qualifying round 1. So to get all the way through to the final was a fantastic effort. I think she is just not very phased, I think, when she gets onto the court, and she plays a really kind of fearless brand of tennis. And I'm not surprised, we're talking about her, I think, at the moment in terms of her ranking, in terms of where could she go. I could see her certainly as a future top tenner potentially, and it's going to be really intriguing, I think, to see where her ranking goes this season, because I think in this tournament she showed how well she can apply herself. I mean, the win against Ons Jabeur in the semi-final was great. And even though, she dropped that second set 6-1, as I said, I think she's just very unfazed regardless of the situation, she finds herself in. She plays the big points very, very well. She did that as well against Azarenka, which was a very tight 3-setter. So, I'm curious to see how kind of she gets on. And arguably it was a bit more of the story was almost with the top half of her coming through the draw than Sabalenka second seed, I think, making it through to the final and winning.
And a couple of other events. We had Auckland as well, the 250 out in New Zealand. Coco Gauff had a very excellent week there, winning without losing a set. She beat Rebecca Masarova in the final, a Spanish qualifier. Only lost 2 games, so very dominant performance from Coco this week. Chris, this is Coco's first title on hard court since 2019. I was quite surprised by that. I know she's won a couple of titles, but I was surprised that it's been such a long time since she's won on a hard court.
That is a big surprise because she's got such a great game for it, and we've seen her play some really, really good tennis on hard court. So that is a surprise. We do know she loves the clay. She said there's something about Paris. So I think it's great to see that she's putting the results together on different surfaces. I also think something that I was really surprised about with that performance is that 6-1, 6-1 victory was an hour and 47 minutes. So I was thinking, was there a delay in that match maybe that didn't get picked up? But the highlights from that match looked like they were both playing really great tennis. And I think
Gauff
it
saved
makes
a
me
lot
feel...
of break points, I think, I read. I think she saved like 10 break points. So I think it was maybe the scoreline was a little bit unfair. There were some really long games. All 11 break points were saved. So that is very impressive. Masarova took out Sloane, so I feel a bit better that she went all the way through. Yeah, I think
we felt for you.
Thanks. I
mean, she's already lost to Lauren Davis.
Well, Sloane may be 0 from 2, but so is Nadal for this season. So let's keep that one in perspective.
She'll always be a Grand Slam champion, Chris. Don't worry.
Yeah, actually, I can't. If that we're going to the Sloane Nadal thing, is one slam versus.
Well, I mean, another Grand Slam champion in that draw, who I actually thought gave Coco Gauff the toughest test of the week, Sophia Kenin, in on a wild card. All the Kenin fans were like, where's this tennis been? I've been so, I was so happy to see her, just get out there and just compete with Coco. I know it obviously ended in defeat, but again, her performance actually surprised me in terms of, the level she brought. And as I said, to push Gauff, who ended up as the champion the way she did, I was I'm not gonna lie, was pretty surprised by that.
Just consider 3 years ago, Sophia Kenin was winning the Australian Open, and now she's ranked 228, something like that in the world. Yeah. Joel, you thought she was unranked when we spoke before recording, which...
Hang on, I'm sure a lot of our listeners had no idea what her ranking was.
No,
but,
we did just look that up, to be fair.
It is sad, though, that there are points... We talk about Kenin needed a wild card. That is probably understandable. Garbiñe Muguruza needed a wild card for the WTA 500 in Adelaide. I'm a bit sad she's got to a point where, arguably she's going to have to get wild cards and go into qualifying for these smaller 500 events, given where she was at a few years ago. Talking about her being like the end of season tour champion of 2021. So
that is very, very... I mean, it's very sad to see because she's such a great player, and you do think it is between the years. I think that Venus Williams should be given every wild card going, whether she needs it or not, because I think it was great to see her play. But unfortunately, a couple of those matches ended in injury. So obviously Venus is now pulled out of the Australian Open, which was very sad. But also the Raducanu match was... That was pretty devastating, wasn't it?
I mean, the weather was just a nightmare for this tournament, wasn't it? It just ruined... A lot of the matches had to be played indoors, and fans can get access. It just sort of brought the occasion down, which was a real shame given, the number of stars they had in what was quite a packed draw. Yeah,
Emma Raducanu, she had an issue with her left ankle. She sort of blamed it on the slippery court, so she had to withdraw, and hopefully she'll be okay for the AO. But there was so much rain. Obviously, Venus also has picked up an injury despite getting a win in the first round over Volleynet. So, bit of a shame that the weather kind of impacted the tournament so much. However, looking through the draw, I was delighted to see one of the wild cards was a Brenda Fruvertova. I had no idea Linda had a little sister. So there's 2 Fruvertovas, which I thought was quite exciting. But she didn't do very well. She did get thrashed by Leila Annie Fernandez. But exciting to see her name on the draw. Another tennis sibling kind of thing going on there.
Budding rivalry.
She'll be the Czech, United Cup captain in 30 years. We also had the Pune ATP event out in India. So this was a 250 for the men. And the final, we had two first-time finalists actually competing that one. Talon Griegspoor against Benjamin Bonzi. And Griegspoor came out on top on that one in 3 sets. So he outlasted his French opponent to get his first ever ATP Tour title. I think Griegspoor very, very solid on serve. Bonzi just couldn't quite keep up as the match wore on. But yeah, great to see, two new first-time finalists. I saw there was a few Dutch players in the draw. Botic van der Zandschulp got to the semis. He could have made it an all-Dutch final. Tim van Rijthoven was also there. But yeah, no, good for Griegspoor. Bonzi also great week into the top 50. I think if he'd have won, he would have been the French number one, which Joel is. I know you're always going about French tennis, like you loved your Gilles.
The
Simon
death of French tennis and all the players retiring. Like Simon last year, obviously a big name. For me, it's crazy to think that Benjamin Bonzi, who knows, by the French Open rolling around, maybe Benjamin Bonzi is going to be the French male number one. Which I don't know if we have any French listeners. What do you make of that? Because that doesn't sound particularly great to me. That doesn't sound like we're entering.
Is it Mannarino at the moment?
It is Mannarino,
is that number one and number two for France
regularly
on the tour at the moment? I don't know when.
We should have a section called "Who is the French number one?"
Caroline Garcia.
Yes, thank goodness for French women's tennis. Exactly.
Well, on that bombshell, we'll take a quick break, but do join us in the second half where we'll be discussing the new tennis Netflix series, Breakpoint, our Grand Slam predictions for 2023, and also looking forward to the last round of tournaments before the Australian Open gets underway. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tour Catch-Up Show, sponsored by downloadtennis.com. And now we're going to move on to a par for the courts. It's back. It's 2023. Joel, I think you've got a par
new sound effects. With new sound effects.
I can't wait to hear what it sounds like when I lose now.
Chris, you normally win, so I don't know about that.
Yeah. I'd love to hear the new winner sound.
Yes. This is a par for the courts. This is a back and forth edition of par for the courts. And the topic I have for you both, we didn't really do an awards episode last season, so I'm actually throwing it back. And this concerns the WTA awards and all the players who have won the Player of the Year award as part of the WTA awards since 1977, which was the first ever edition of the WTA awards. I think there are 22 players in total who have won this award up to the end of last year. And I'm going to say, who shall kick off the new season? I know I'm going to start with, let's start with Chris, because I think this is a good territory for him. But yeah, 22 players have been Player of the Year since 1977 on the WTA circuit. Chris, what is your first answer going to be?
Ash Barty.
Correct.
Serena Williams.
Correct. 7-time recipient of Player of the Year.
Venus Williams.
Correct. Yes. Year 2000.
Simona Halep.
Correct. 2018.
Steffi Graf.
Yes. An 8-time winner. Last time to do it was 1996.
Lindsay Davenport.
Very good. Correct. 1998 and 1999.
Martina Hingis.
Correct. Just before Lindsay Davenport in 1997.
Justine Henin.
Correct. Yes. A 2-time Player of the Year recipient.
Martina Navratilova.
correct. Yes, on the list.
Chris Evert.
Correct. Yes, 1981.
This is getting tricky because we've had quite a lot of slam winners who've won the one in the year, but I'm going to go Sharapova.
That is correct. Yes, on the list, 2004. Still some big names you've not mentioned. That's sort of surprising me, but yes. Kim?
I'm struggling now. Amelie Mauresmo.
Yes, on the list, 2006.
If in doubt, French tennis.
Oh, okay. It is getting tense now.
Have we said Angie Kerber?
Oh, yeah, that would be a good one.
Angelique Kerber is a correct answer. Yes, 2016.
How about... Oh, do I say this person? Garbina Muguruza? Is there any space for her?
Oh, Kim. Garbina Muguruza is a correct answer. Yes, the year after Angie Kerber, 2017. Unbelievable to think, given the state of the situation today.
That is a bit shocking. I think I'm going to have to go. I don't know if we've said this already, so I might get the new noise, but I'm going to give it Kim's namesake, Kim Clijsters.
Correct answer, 2005.
Now I'm really out, Kim.
Well, I think we're going on to like players that would only have done it like for 1 year now. Caroline Wozniacki?
Oh, that's a good one.
Caroline Wozniacki, Kim. Incorrect answer.
Oh, no!
That doesn't seem right.
Did not win Player of the Year. So
she was very consistent.
I mean, some things just stay the same. And Chris, you are the winner of Par for the Courts this week. Caroline Wozniacki.
We needed the off season just to get our stress levels down.
So yeah, you did pretty well between you. But any other guesses you had up your sleeves?
I was thinking of Seles and Capriati. Either of them.
So if you had said Monica Seles or Jennifer Capriati, Kim, they both were correct.
Oh,
as if we forgot that. That is a shocking one. What about who won it in 2020?
Well, you could have told me Sophia Kenin, who won it in 2020.
No.
And surprisingly, no one said Iga Swiatek, 2022.
I was thinking
thought we
about
weren't allowed her.
But I thought we weren't. Yeah, I was debating. Anyway.
Well, yeah. And also you could have had Virginia Wade in 1977.
Oh, wow.
And Tracy Austin in 1980. So that was your complete list. So Virginia Wade, Martina Navratilova, Tracy Austin, Chris Evert, Steffi Graf, Monica Seles, Martina Hingis, Davenport, Venus Williams, Capriati, Serena Williams, Enan Sharapova, Clijsters, Mauresmo. Oh, Petra Kvitova, sorry, beg my pardon. 2011. Kerber, Muguruza, Halep, Barty, Kenin, Swiatek.
Well, we didn't do too badly, Kim.
No, I think between us, that's one of our most successful, and I think it was one of my more thought-provoking. I really love these. I do have to rack my brain. So thank you, Joel, for bringing another excellent edition of Par for the Courts to Tennis Weekly. We now have another edition of the Tennis Weekly mailbag, and big thanks to Luke, who got in touch via Twitter to ask us, with it being the new season, who are we all predicting to be our ATP and WTA Grand Slam champions this year and end of season number ones? So thank you, Luke. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for your question. Gosh, who wants to kick off with these and potentially risk embarrassment by sending
Chris is definitely risking embarrassment, I think, from his answers.
I'm way more embarrassing. Because as we were talking, I'll make you both feel a lot better. Because as we were talking, I did forget that Djokovic is actually not allowed to play the US Open. So he is...
is he not?
Very much...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I had him down for that one. So that is a little bit embarrassing. But having said that, people regularly put Sabalenka down to win the Australian Open. I'm making that exact same mistake, and I was tossing up for this one, but I've gone Djokovic and Sabalenka for the AO. I'm never going to not stick with Krejcikova for Roland Garros. Last time I did predict she would get to the final and she lost in the first round because she hadn't played all season. But Krejcikova and Holger Rune, I'm going to say, for Roland Garros.
Oh, okay.
We'll have a breakout victory. For Wimbledon, I've gone for Yannick Sinner and Caroline Garcia. And then the US Open.
Sorry,
Yes.
I was slightly slow.
For Wimbledon, yes.
Garcia. Oh, can you
Great
imagine?
grass court player. Well, it gets better, Kim. US Open, I've gone for Djokovic, who currently is not allowed in the country, and Belinda Bencic, who I have indeed. Year-end number ones, Djokovic and Caroline Garcia. The prophecy will be realised.
Oh, it's a prophecy now, not a
Is it
Renee.
the prophecy now? Okay, right. Glad we've cleared
Is that
that
our
up.
new word for 2023? It's now
The Andy Murray prophecy to be world number
see.
one.
Oh, of course. That
Yes.
is genuinely going to
I'm
happen.
not calling
the
it
Andy
the
Murray
prophecy,
right?
the resurgence of Caroline Garcia.
Right, move over
Right.
Renaissance. Prophecy
Should we
is now in for 2023.
Oh yeah, the Renaissance was complete, no?
Should we
agreed
set
that.
up a it was complete when she won the tour finals. I think we should set up a new podcast just for Caroline Garcia fans. Right, Joel, would you like to share your predictions for us?
Yeah, I've gone. Mine's a bit more boring. I think I've gone Djokovic for Australian Open, French Open, and Wimbledon.
Right, okay.
I just think he's in a class of his own, dare I say, at the moment. I've got Jessie Pegula winning the Australian Open. I think that victory over Świątek's done her a world of good, and I think she's looking really, really smart at the moment. French Open, I've got Iga Świątek. Wimbledon, Ons Jabeur, who I think is gonna do one better than last year when she reached the final. And then US Open, I'm going Daniil Medvedev and Iga Świątek with my end of season number ones, Novak Djokovic and Iga Świątek. I know Novak Djokovic, I still think will be sort of limited by number of events he can play, but I still think we will see him get back to world number one, I think.
I've gone very similar to you, Joel.
You went for two Igas winning and an Iga number one, and I went for none. Just realised that.
Wow.
I think this
Well,
is
you can't win when Garcia's on tour, can you? So
true. Sorry, Kim.
I've gone for Novak and Jessie Pegula for AO as well, Joel. So we're actually in alignment there. Roland Garros, I've gone for Novak and Iga as well.
Oh my
Obviously,
goodness.
I know I've not predicted Rafa, but I'm hoping that's just me, like, not, I'm hoping obviously that doesn't happen, that, Rafa does win. 15 could be on the cards, but that would be going some. Wimbledon, Novak again, and I've gone for Ludmila Samsonova to win that one.
You always love one curveball in these, I think, Kim.
Yeah, and grass court
it.
gives the curveball,
Yeah.
and I'm sure she had good form on a grass court a few years ago.
Well, I mean, Kim, that's telling me that you think Russians will be allowed at Wimbledon 2023, which we don't know yet.
I think they'll be allowed, and I think one of them will win as a sort of ironic twist. But do you know what? Samsonova's grown up a lot in Italy. Surely she might be able to transfer her. I don't know if she'd be able
for the grass court season. Just
just for the grass, yeah.
Or Kazakhstan, that's one way to win
I'm
Wimbledon.
Italian now. And US Open, I forgot that Djokovic wasn't able to play, but I hadn't picked him anyway. I've gone for Sasha Zverev and Aryna Sabalenka. And then my number ones are Novak and Iga. But I think Świątek will only just be number one because she's got so many points to potentially lose this year. But she's so far ahead, I still think she's going to cling on to it. So, listeners, in 11 months' time, you can play this episode back and laugh at everything we've just said.
Please forget it all now.
Yeah, great question from Luke. Thanks so much for getting in touch. And don't forget, you can all let us know your questions by tweeting us, emailing us, etc. With your questions for the mailbag. And before we wrap up today, a couple of things we do want to mention, actually, because it's very pertinent. Very excitingly, on the 13th of January, we've finally got the Netflix series that we've been alluding to and that we've all been hearing rumours about. It's going to be live on Netflix. The first 5 episodes are going to be released on the 13th to cover the first half of the season. So AO, Roland Garros, etc. Are you both looking forward to this? Are you setting a reminder for Friday to start binge watching when you wake up, or are you just a bit like, whatever, this won't give us anything new. We know what they're going to talk about already. What's your views on this? Chris, are you excited?
Wow. I watched the trailer and I have to say I am not excited.
Really? Okay. Oh, that's cutting.
I just don't think it's for me, and I think it's for people who don't know anything about tennis. That's kind of what I think it is, because I think some of the casting and the way they've done it, I mean, obviously it seems like that Kyrgios is going to feature very heavily, as is Kokkinakis. Yeah. I think that's slightly surprising to me, especially given the controversy that's still around Kyrgios right now and the lawsuit he's currently facing. I think they've obviously taken a big sort of leap of faith with him featuring so heavily. I mean, it does look a bit like the Kyrgios show. Admittedly, he is an interesting character, but I do think that I'm a bit saddened by the fact that that he is the focus. I know he sells tickets, but I think that's my feeling there, because they have tried to paint him out. I think the line above his picture is, who will fill, the next greats, and Kyrgios is almost 30. So I think it might be Carlos, actually, or it might be Holger, or it might be some of these other players. So I guess I mean, I've been a bit cutting, but I would have liked to have seen a few other players be a bit more prominent in the trailer, but maybe it is a trailer, and trailers don't always tell you exactly what happens in the film. So I'm hoping for that.
I didn't realise that it was going to be like focusing on kind of the up and coming sort of next gen, or the players that, they were sort of earmarking as taking over from the, the big three or what have you. I didn't realise, I guess they can't cover everyone, but I didn't realise it was only going to be like a select cohort. But it'd be interesting to watch players like FAA and, I don't know, basically everyone but Kyrgios. Yeah, I don't really want to watch a whole series about Kyrgios.
Same.
So I'm kind of hoping they do fairly balance it out, but they know that Kyrgios, I guess, sells. So I don't know, Joel. You're a bit more of a Kyrgios partial, aren't you?
I will be watching it. I'm curious to know what I'm gonna get from it, what I'm gonna learn from it. I think this is a great opportunity, as you said, to kind of showcase and add a bit, I think, more personality to some of these players that we see so much on a tennis court, and whether focus on that more human stuff off the court, I think is going to be really, really eye-opening. I think we know a lot of that, I think, with Nick Kyrgios already, and I think is what's so kind of divisive, because I think it's like quite obvious that can be seen as entertainment, and it gets a lot of people talking. But actually, I'm more curious about players that I feel like I know a lot, or I see play a lot on a tennis court, but do I really know them off the court? Probably not so much. And their personalities out there, I think, like Ons Jabeur on the women's side, who I think is so charismatic, and I love how she presents herself in interviews, and I think it could be really interesting to see how it comes across. But I do think this is maybe aimed at an audience that is more kind of like outside of the world of tennis, and getting them interested in a way that's not, oh, here's tennis on a tennis court. And, it's almost like an alternative route into being interested in tennis. That's kind of the strategy that worked with Drive to Survive and Formula One, get people interested in the players, and then the races kind of come second. And I wonder if it's going to work in that way for tennis. We'll have to wait and see.
I think you're definitely right that it's those stories that are behind it. Like Paula Badosa, she mentioned how hard it is mentally. I think it's interesting to see some of the players who aren't getting the results and what life is like on the tour, as well as some of the success stories. I do think the alternative working title should have been Breakpoint, the Sabalenka double fault story, because she is being followed. But that will be, I'll tune in for episode 1, hopefully Adelaide and Australian Open last year for Sabalenka.
Isn't there a film called Breakpoint about surfing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a generic-ish name, isn't it?
Yes, it makes me think of that, to be honest with you. And I feel like they could have done better on the name, but I I don't know.
Well, we'll see. Well, we're no doubt going to be talking a little bit about it once it comes out and seeing what the reaction is. It's interesting. It's coming out during the Australian Open. So I have no doubt during the earlier rounds when all these big players are going through formulaic 3-set victories, the focus is going to quickly turn to break points. So we'll have to wait and see how it unfolds.
Well, one player who may have time on his hands to watch Breakpoint because he's not at the Australian Open is Carlos Alcaraz, who is still out with injury. We very much expect him to be back at some point. But interestingly, none of us have actually put him in our predictions for a slam win this year. So perhaps we're already envisaging some, season difficulties, but we hope he's back soon. Another player we don't have at the Australian Open is also Naomi Osaka, who's gone very silent on social media. We haven't seen her play since September. Chris, are you thinking that this might be more of a permanent withdrawal from the tour, from tennis? Do you think Osaka's had her day?
Well, I think she's had an awful lot of success, both on and off the court. And so I think none of us were necessarily thinking that she would be in Australia because we hadn't seen her name we had seen it on the entry list, but we hadn't seen any noise of her playing or any clips of her playing or any clips of her training like she tends to sometimes share. She did say that she had the itch to play tennis end of last year, but the commitment required, I think it reaches a point where when you've achieved so much, it might not necessarily be worth it for you. And if you're finding joy off the court, I do probably think this could become something more permanent, because when you think about it, Australia has been such a successful tournament for her. Yeah. And what's she going to do? Pop up in Miami again, which didn't really work. She got to the final, but then it didn't really continue past that. She's unlikely to play on clay as her comeback, and she's not necessarily a big fan of the grass. So you can't not see this as a sign that she is moving away from tennis. But she is 25. There's lots of time left. But I do think that you have to really, really want it to put in the hours and to be on the court. And I think right now it probably doesn't seem like it's worthwhile for her.
No. And what's amazing is last year she was highest paid female athlete. She made $51 million, and only $1 million of that was in prize money. So
Miami pays well.
So yeah, it's there's, I feel like, she's obviously set kind of, I feel, financially. It's interesting. I keep reading about her management company. I think they've just signed up on Jabeur. So there's obviously things going on in her portfolio. And I think the more and more noise we hear from those sorts of circles and less about Naomi Osaka on the tennis court, I think is worrying, to be honest. I think it's a sad sign for tennis, but we're moving into these times, I think, where there is greater flexibility. There's different priorities, and we're seeing that on the women's circuit. Ash Barty stopped what we thought was at the peak of her career, and is going to have a baby. You announced a pregnancy last week, so it's understandable, but I think it's going to be a great shame for tennis if 2023 does turn out to be the year that Naomi Osaka leaves the sport for good.
But finding happiness doesn't have to happen on the tennis court. I think we're seeing now for lots of these players, and she's had some great success. And, I think it's exactly what you've said. Ash Barty probably maybe had some sort of an impact on some of Osaka's thinking, seeing just how happy she was stepping away from the pressures of the sport.
And I think that's what the Breakpoint documentary, some of the reviews that I've seen have said. It really does show how isolating and lonely, life on the tour is. And hence, this is all part and parcel of that. But going back to tennis in the here and now, coming up in the next week, we've got even more tournaments. We've got Auckland for the men, the 250. Casper Ruud is the top seed. Cam Norrie is playing it. Obviously, kind of a second home for him, isn't it, in Auckland? We've got Adelaide 2 for the men and women. I've forgotten they named them 1 and 2. I love it. Caroline Garcia's in action. That's my highlight of the week, I have to say. As in, seeing what she does in Adelaide. And we've got Hobart as well for the WTA.
Kim, you mean you're not interested in the Arena Showdown practice match between Nick Kyrgios and Novak Djokovic, which is happening on Friday at the Rod Laver Arena that the Australian Open has ticketed at $20 for a practice match, which certainly caught my eye as a trend that I feel started last season. And I get it's probably due to the pandemic and all these events need to make as much money as possible. But charging for practice matches, I mean, come on.
That is a bit much, I think. And calling it a showdown, the way they're marketing it. I mean, I hope the money goes to charity because that's a bit of
Same. It must go to charity, surely.
Surely, because they do Kids Day, and I think that goes to charity. And I did that one year, and I wouldn't do it again because the screaming children got on my nerves.
This is like adults. This is like adults Kids Day, isn't it?
It's adults Kids Day. Is 6:30? Is that too early for people to turn up drunk? Because I feel like the sort of audience they might attract.
Another lawsuit pending.
Well, how many drinks? 700 drinks. Yeah, it's
lower the
Kyrgios
estimate. Kyrgios,
gonna have a
7
go.
drinks.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe. I mean, are they streaming that? Maybe you could.
Yeah, I think it is actually.
Yeah. Okay. God, I might not tune in. We'll watch Breakpoint instead. I think. But that does bring us to a close for our first catch up of the year. And what a catch up it's been.
Yes, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed listening to our first episode of the new season of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come down under on the WTA and ATP tours, with the Australian Open to come very, very soon.
We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Tennis Weekly Pod. You can email us at tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or check out our website, www.tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we are going to be back on Thursday. No rest for us at Tennis Weekly HQ. We're going to be doing a draw preview episode for the Australian Open. We're going to have all the favourites in there. Collector set will be back. We'll be making some predictions as well. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.